Warplanes, explosions, and millions of casualties are not the result of war, but rather a scientist's botched experiment using seeds from the Garden of Eden. Will the plan of Eden finally bring purity and grace to Earth, or complete destruction? Dr. Frame's personal laboratory. After burning a cigarette, the scientist directs a stream of smoke onto the leaves of an unknown plant, and the results are astounding. The flower appears to suck up all of the toxins, fully cleansing the air. Meanwhile, a Fed and a loser from Story are on the outskirts of town. Frame's lab is getting set to meet, followed by Kate and Joe, two environmentalists. The young guys video what's going on, certain that they will catch those dumping toxic rubbish today, and immediately understand that something weird is going to happen here. The Fed offers Kyle a bag full of cash, after which the man cuts the palm of his hand and applies a plant to it. In a split second, there's no evidence of the wound, and the beleaguered agent begs him to hurry up and give him the prized seeds. The transaction breaks apart when the agent notices Joe and Kate. The agent is concerned that Kyle intended to defraud him and intends to liquidate the loser. This causes the seed flask to fall from the man's grasp. The huge seed bursts the shell, releasing roots underground, and in a matter of seconds, massive, live roots emerge into the region. Dr. Jocelyn Stein is happily combing the sand for new relics, unaware that they will come for her soon. But for now, let's return to Kate and Joe, who have managed to move away from the sprouting location, but the green shoots are coming up with them, separating the asphalt. What is happening is relayed to the elderly professor, who recognizes that calamity is on the way since the seeds were not prepared for the open environment. The Feds arrest Dr. Stein, informing her what's going on as we go. The agent asks the girl to recall the last time she saw Frame, and Jocelyn tells her that it was a long time ago when they were searching for plant seeds from the Garden of Eden, but when she discovered the urn, the old man told her that nothing was there. Joe becomes stuck in traffic and runs to alert others of the danger, but it is too late. The gigantic roots are spreading at breakneck speed, collapsing the track beneath the cars, and the person just has time to swerve before he is underground. When Stein arrives at the secret headquarters, she sees satellite imagery of the roots spreading for hundreds of kilometers, killing everything in their path, and she knows that the professor has duped her. He succeeded to produce the Eden plant, but the doctor has lost control of it. The agents know that the roots will soon reach the cities and that they will not have time to evacuate everyone, thus the only way to save people is to remove the roots. Meanwhile, Kate and Joe arrive at their friend's house to run Kyle's car plate number and discover where the person brought the seed to the meeting location. The FBI advises blowing out the roots, but Jocelyn warns that this might exacerbate the situation by allowing new shoots to develop in place of the shattered roots. An aging coder discovers the address where Kyle's automobile is registered seconds before calamity strikes. The company travels there, but Joe and Kate are too late to save their friend, who falls through the root fissure. By this time, the authorities had lifted military fighter aircraft into the skies, choosing to take their risks and attack the roots after all, and a missile flies directly over the young men's heads. The command realizes that the strike was ineffective and requests that the launch be repeated, but the roots refuse to give up, instead raising their massive tentacles in the sky and shooting down the aircraft straight in the air. Stein requests that the bombing cease, but no one listens until the last jet disappears in front of everyone. Finally, the commander is forced to confess defeat and announces a thorough evacuation. When Frame notices intruders entering the facility, he dispatches guards to deal with them. The roots are encroaching on more and more land, splintering it. Climbing over the fence, Joe risks plunging into the fissure, but the plant abruptly stops at the lab's entrance. What happened leads Frame to discover out how to stop the deadly plant from developing. To do so, he must stop the cells from multiplying, but he doesn't want everyone flocking to his garden for refuge. As she thinks, Jocelyn recalls Bible verses, and it appears to her that the plant is aggressive due to pollution. According to the girl, the eradication strategy should be based on this. Looking at satellite photographs, Jocelyn notices a location that the Roots are avoiding and advises that the agent fly there to investigate. The man is concerned since the president has ordered them to evacuate to the mountains, but he decides to go anyhow. Regardless, through Joe and Kate must shelter within the garden from the guards, who open fire without notice. The man is injured, but he refuses to go until they discover the truth about the mystery Garden of Eden-like location. Agent Jack learns from his colleague that their agent spoke with Kyle the day before, and the route most likely began to develop from there. For the time being, the Fed and Jocelyn go to Frame's Garden of Eden to see why the root hasn't touched it. Joe's strength wears out and he collapses on the grass, but the boy's wound heals right in front of his eyes. After gathering a few healing leaves, the couple continues on their trip to the lab. The Roots approach Lake Tahoe, forcing the Feds to evacuate without waiting for the chopper, but Agent Wilson is also unable to travel far. The spies break inside the lab, and Kate films anything that may be used to show the doctor's guilt later. They also discover a refrigerator with seeds and roots that are being tested. Frame almost detects the intruders, but the sound of the machine distracts him. It demonstrates the root's heartbeat, and the scientist rushes to inform the others about it. Kate manages to videotape as well, and she ends up having concrete proof in her hands. Jocelyn and Jack disagree on faith against science, as well as what to do with the remaining seeds. The girl is confident that with the appropriate approach, a plant from the Garden of Eden may cleanse and repair the earth, but the Fed refuses to even consider it, claiming that everything they uncover constitutes a threat and would be destroyed. The old professor informs his friend that he has created a serum that would prevent the roots from growing. However, they must locate the rod and get it to the lab for analysis. Jocelyn is certain after seeing Eden from the aircraft that it is all the work of Frame, who has managed to manipulate the flora. Kate realizes that during the filming, lost camera, she misplaced her camera, which had all of the proof. The girl begs her boyfriend to accompany her, but he refuses since it is too risky, especially since a helicopter begins to circle above their heads. Dr. Frame is also noticed by the chopper. He directs the guards to prevent the automobile from landing. The guards open fire, and the chopper crashes. Despite this, it manages to land with little shaking. Kate proposes that Joe take advantage of the situation by finding a camera and fleeing while everyone is focused on the chopper. The chopper pilot is killed, and the survivors Jocelyn and Jack flee to penetrate the lab's heart. Kate discovers that the bag is empty, the doctor's mercenaries have removed the camera, and she has no evidence of what is going on. Meanwhile, the Roots Frame monitors news broadcasts about how the Roots would soon take over the world and kill millions of people. Kate's camera is likewise given to the old guy by the attendant. As she walks around the garden, Dr. Stein notices that the professor has successfully restored many of the flora from the Garden of Eden. The girl suspects that something in the garden soil is preventing the roots from reaching here, and she scoops out the dirt to be studied. However, in order to do so and make the serum, Jocelyn requires equipment that only Frame possesses. Jack agrees to assist her, so the two decide to take their chances by slipping in. On their walk-in, Jack and Jocelyn run into Kate and Joe. Young males must create justifications for themselves. They're discussing how they're attempting to preserve mankind. The couples decide to work together since they have no other option because everything behind the garden fence is covered in roots and they need to hurry. Frame goes over the camera video, beginning with Kyle's decision to sell one of the seeds, which subsequently sprouts. The old guy knows where to seek for the taproot. Kate relates the same narrative to new acquaintances along the way, but they don't have time to consider what to do with this information because the professor's security stops the group as they reach the lab. Jack fires and instructs the others to flee. While the Fed keeps the guards at bay, the remainder of the group arrives to the lab, and Jocelyn begins studying the ground. Her conclusions were true. There is a chemical in the soil that the plant is terrified of, and it can be utilized to manufacture a serum. Without further ado, the girl begins extracting the chemical by evaporating it on a gas burner. Meanwhile, Jack is still fighting the guards. When Frame learns that someone is in his laboratory, he orders that he not touch anything with his hands. Recognizing Jacqueline's voice, the old acquaintance tells her that he did not want a calamity, but rather that he wishes to create a Garden of Eden everywhere. The elderly guy begs Stein to let him in so they can collaborate, otherwise the roots would swallow the ocean and the entire planet will be in peril. Jocelyn is persuaded by the professor's comments, and she unlocks the door. The girl informs Frame that she has extracted an antitoxin capable of killing the root, but the old man lies to her about the location of the big root rod. Noelle is apprehended by Jack, and they join the others. Following a discussion about their future moves, the firm chooses to take action, first injecting the antitoxin and then opening fire on the root, leaving no possibility for it to recover. Old Man Frame is asked to pilot the helicopter, but everyone suspects that the scientist would trick them. Meanwhile, the roots are ruining neighboring states, the root is killing thousands of people, and the ground is completely unrecognizable from above. The crew circles the root's cave, trying to find the rod, but it's impossible. Frame notices an open location where they may land, and the group travels to the epicenter through an underground tube. Joe and Kate remain aboard the helicopter, keeping an eye out for developments on the strange roots. The business eventually discovers the main root, which the scientists appreciate, but Jack warns them that it must be destroyed. The Fed directs Jocelyn to inject the serum after making multiple bullet holes in the root, and the process begins. The root is too cunning. As soon as the poison reaches its channels, it begins to rebuild. Then Jack decides to start with an explosion, but Professor Frame changes his mind and, after having his partners under his pistol, shoots the agent so he doesn't interfere with his research on the wonderful plant. Jocelyn is forced to inject more serum into the root by the elderly man, which would just put the plant to sleep, but instead Stein injects a needle into his colleague's heart, and while Jack fights to activate the explosive timer, the partners escape into the light, where fresh root sprouts are blazing. The duo escapes in time, but an explosion rumbles behind them. The gigantic root dips and becomes dark, indicating that the strategy was successful and the monster plant was killed. Kate and Joe rush over to their friends and discover that Jack is in poor health, his wounded is too severe, and the agent has died. To rescue the agent, Joe picks leaves from the park and in a minute there is no indication of the cut on the agent's body. Back at the lab, Jocelyn studies the seeds further and changes the plant's DNA so that it becomes predictable and docile while preserving its therapeutic qualities. They plant the old seeds with Jack, and they quickly germinate and purify the ground, making it brighter and more productive.